A new president is coming in, y'all. He's old as hell, like really old. He's going to be taking office at the ripe old age of 78 billion. And when he leaves in 4 years, or at the end of his 4-year term, he'll be 82 trillion years old. No worries though, because Madam Vice President Kamala Harris will be there to step in if shit hits the fan. I'll let y'all decide how you feel about that. That is certainly a topic for another video. So far, identity is ruling the day in the Biden administration. He made sure to pick a bunch of people that he feels represents the diversity of America. We got the first woman vice president, and we also got a bunch of other historic firsts for the executive branch. And I don't want to sound too shady about this, because I think symbols and images matter. Our kids need to be able to look up at the highest positions of power in our society and see people in them that look like them. The executive branch, the presidency, and everything that has been surrounding that, in our government in general, has been an old white man's club for too long. So this is good. We should celebrate it. But as adults, as grown people, we know how you use the influence that you have while you're in office, right? It's about substance. If what you're doing doesn't do anything to help the people from those marginalized communities that you come from or claim to represent, it doesn't matter. If you represent the same ways of thinking, the same approaches to problem solving as we've seen in the past, then to be honest, I'm against you, period. Let's move on. Joe Biden is planning to come out swinging. A 1.9 trillion COVID relief plan that includes new stim checks. Everybody likes a stimulus check. Executive orders, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, reversing a lot of Trump things. Let's check out this clip that explains it a little bit better than I will.
Within the first 10 days, he'll take a series of executive actions aimed at reversing some of President Trump's most controversial policies. Among them, ending the Trump travel ban on Muslim-majority countries, rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, extending the pause on student loan payments, mandating mask wearing on federal property and interstate travel. Biden also proposing a sweeping $1.9 trillion relief package that would include an extra $1,400 in direct payments to families, billions in aid to state and local governments, and for the distribution of the COVID vaccine.
Generally, I think he's sounding good. I think it's a good idea to come out swinging. Trump definitely did. And I know everybody remembers all Trump's executive orders. Trump was really going ham in that first few days, few weeks in office. Biden has even been saying the right things in terms of not being afraid to actually spend money that's necessary to address the problems that we have, especially related to COVID and the sort of coming economic collapse that's happening as a result of that.
The price tag will be high. But as I said, made scant reference to in my opening comments, the overwhelming consensus among the leading economists, left, right, and center, is that in order to keep the economy from collapsing this year and getting much, much worse, we should be investing significant amounts of money right now to grow the economy. And that's a pretty wide consensus.
I like that. I really do. Nobody asks how you're going to pay for it when we're talking about spending $700 billion a year on the military. No one's asking how we're going to pay for it when they're talking about giant tax cuts for the rich, right? So it's a good strategy to shut those questions down from now. Saying you could ask them, but that's not really what my focus is right now. My focus is on doing what it takes to get us out of the problems we have right now. Period. I like that. I think that makes sense. His focus is on solving the issues. So we're here for that. But here's the deal. Executive orders, and really most actions taken by the executive branch, the president and his cabinet members by themselves, those are good for media. The media cycle is good for you looking like you're coming in and you're ready to go and you're taking action and you're doing what you can.
His legally binding orders and presidential memoranda directing government with the stroke of a pen.
Build the Keystone and Dakota pipelines.
But those actions only last as long as the president that's there is in the office. Where the real impact, I think, comes is from what you're able to get passed from Congress. Things that make it into law. So in that regard, I don't really know what to expect from this administration. And I'm actually a little worried about Biden's historic preference for moderate policies and this idea of bringing us back to normal, whatever that normal is that he's been talking about since we've seen him as a presidential candidate, now president. No offense, but a large stimulus bill in dealing with the COVID crisis is kind of a no-brainer for any president, not just a Democrat, any new president especially. We got 3 different stimulus bills under Trump and the Republicans, right? So the fact that this is legislative priority number 1, obviously it makes sense, it's timely, it's relevant, but there's no courage in that, and I'm not that impressed by this being, his top legislative priority, right? We need a lot of other things too. And I hope his moderate administration tries to get those things passed too, right? Tries to fight in Congress for those other things that are important to American society, right? And given that they have the Senate and the House, and the presidency, Democrats control all the levers of government right now. There should be no reservations about doing this. But when you think about centrism and moderates, you gotta know that there's going to be a lot of self-moderation that might be a little bit unnecessary. And that's the type of things that I'm worried about with Joe Biden. On the campaign trail, he promised a $15 minimum wage. He talked about expanding Obamacare to make sure that all Americans are covered and adding a public option, right? Reducing healthcare costs for everyone, right? He talked about all of these things. He talked about asking Congress to do things on the student debt crisis, right? Student loan forgiveness. I don't know what it is. He talked about like $10,000 in student debt forgiveness. I think they could go way further. But the point is, he talked about all of these things as being important for him. He's going to reverse the Trump tax cuts that went to the richest people in this country immediately when he got in office, right? These are all things that need to be done legislatively, that need to be done through Congress. Spending $2 trillion on investment in green energies and a green infrastructure plan that will help us reduce carbon emissions. All of these things. You can't do any of that with an executive order, with a directive from anywhere in your administration alone. You need Congress. And that's where that energy needs to be. Everyone needs to be pushing him to, at the very least, do the things that he set out as his own legislative priorities. Let's make them keep their promises. And then let's demand more, because he's the whole president now. And again, this is not the campaign anymore. He is now in office. He's the incumbent. There's nobody to blame for things not getting done except him and except the Democrats. And there's signs that Biden will need this pushing. There's signs. In the past, he's conceded to Republicans in crazy ways. Like this, he talked about cutting Social Security. Why would you do that?
Ladies and gentlemen, the American people know we have to fix Social Security. They know we can't grow our way to a solution. They know we're going to have to make some tough decisions.
He openly supports the military-industrial complex and the forever wars that we've been fighting since 2001.
So just to be clear, Vice President Biden, would you leave troops in the Middle East or would you pull them out?
I would leave troops in the Middle East in terms of patrolling the Gulf, where we are now, small numbers of troops. And I think it's a mistake to pull out the small number of troops that are there now to deal with ISIS.
And he's already getting criticized because he talked openly about Americans needing $2,000 checks. He campaigned for the 2 senators that won in Georgia for $2,000 survival checks. And then when you look in the details of his 1.9 trillion COVID proposal, it's actually a $1,400 stimulus check, because he's combining the $1,400 he's given with the $600 that already went out a couple of weeks back. You know, so make of that what you will. I think it's funny. I mean, it's like slicing and dicing unnecessarily. Biden administration is arguing that this is a matter of semantics, but he always promised exactly what he's doing. But no, I think $2,000 is $2,000. A good tool for foreshadowing how he's going to govern and how he's going to handle a lot of his legislative priorities. Did he campaign on $15 minimum wage so that when he goes to Congress, he immediately starts talking about $10 and $12? I don't know. But centrism, moderates, this is the type of stuff you get, so you got to watch out for it. Biden has a tendency towards moderation, towards taking this middle of the road position. And I think after an extremist like Donald Trump, that's part of the reason he got elected. But the election is over now. He's in charge, and it's time to take charge, and it's time to deliver. And listen, I'm going to be watching, and y'all know I'm going to bring everything I see right here to you guys. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, and make sure you stay in the loop.